I wanted to share with you a quick movie review of a great new movie called Young Washington. I had several friends who actually got to see this movie at movie previews at the Reagan Library and in other places across the country. And I was so jealous because I've written about George Washington's experience during the French and Indian War, I think 4 times in 4 different books, taking different angles depending on the topic of the book. And so I was really anxious to see it, and I loved it so much. I went 3 times in the first 8 days, taking friends and family because I wanted to see how my friends and how my family members reacted to this story that I've known about for almost 20 years. Young Washington chronicles the origin story of George Washington, the years that really formed the man and who that formed the leader that he was. And in this movie, you feel a lot of sympathy for Washington. He lost his father at a young age. This meant that he couldn't go to school. They didn't have enough money for him to be able to go to school. He wanted to, his older brother was married to one of the wealthiest women in Virginia, and he wanted that kind of life for himself. And so you really see these formative years, but you see his failures and how that made him into a leader who put the needs of his men above his own glory. And that's what comes out so strongly. This movie really captures the essence of George Washington and his philosophy as a leader. One of the things that really stands out about this movie is that it depicts George Washington's near-death miracle on the battlefield. It was July of 1755. The British, along with a regiment from Virginia, were fighting against the French and their native allies. The battle goes terribly badly, and George Washington has this near-death miracle. He wrote his mother and his brother a letter after the battle and explained that he appeared in the land of the living by the miraculous care of Providence, which protected him beyond all human expectation. For he had 4 bullets go through his coat and 2 horses shot under him, but he was unhurt. And back then, the name Providence meant God's presence. It was like the Spirit of God walking among his people. George Washington used the name Providence more than 560 times in his writings. So it wasn't just a casual reference for him. It was something that he embraced. One of the things that people have asked about is, is all of this true that's in the movie? And the movie is very true to the spirit of George Washington, where they take liberties. And I've studied screenwriting for about 15 years, so I understand some of what you're trying to accomplish in film. Some of the things that happen in a film, you need, everything to go wrong. You need a lot of high stakes moments, that lead to this dark night of soul for the main character. And they did that. And by doing that, they captured, events accurately in that Lawrence Washington, his older brother, did pass away. But the timing of it is where they took liberties so that it works as a film is supposed to work, but it also shows the real things that happened in his life. So I highly recommend that you go see Young Washington. I first wrote about this story in George Washington's life in a devotional book that I wrote called Stories of Faith and Courage from the Revolutionary War. And I used original sources, letters and diaries for that book. And then I wrote about it in a deeper, more at length way in a book called War of Lies, which is a history mystery. It's about propaganda and the French and Indian War and propaganda during the American Revolution. And so if you go to my Substack at janehamptoncook.substack.com, you can sign up for free, and over the next several weeks, you'll get a new installment of George Washington's French and Indian War years that appear in my War of Lies book. I also want to really say something to John Irwin and the makers of this movie, Angel Studios, Wonder Project. Only 13% of 8th graders are proficient in American history. That number is dismal. And we badly need to reverse that trend. And films are the most memorable, most emotionally impactful way to teach story to young Americans and old Americans alike. We know what we feel when we watch Young Washington, and we remember it. And I just think it's vital that we do a lot of films about early American history. I'm obsessed with early American history. I have 4 books on the Revolutionary War and 3 books on the War of 1812. And so I just really hope that this film, this origin film, kicks off just an array of films about the American Revolution and the War of 1812. So, John Irwin, if you're listening, feel free to reach out to me. I have some stories to tell in about 20 different books. So anyway, please go see Young Washington. You'll love it. If you missed it at the theater, you can catch it streaming. I'm sure it will be on Angel Studios and Wonder Project's channel. So that's all for now. Thanks for listening. And I'm author Jane Hampton Cook.